Welcome to the Lawyerist Podcast, a series of conversations about law practice. Each week, we talk with legal entrepreneurs and innovators about building a successful law practice in today's challenging and constantly changing legal market. And now, here are your hosts.
Hi, I'm Sam Glover.
And I'm Aaron Street, and this is episode 254 of the Lawyerist Podcast, part of the Legal Talk Network. Today we're talking with Stephanie Everett about goal setting for next year for yourself and for your law firm. If today's podcast resonates with you and you haven't read the Small Firm Roadmap yet, you can get the first chapter right now for free at lawyerist.com/book.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Smith AI, Alert Communications, Ross Intelligence, and SameBox. We wouldn't be able to do our show without their support. Stay tuned. We'll tell you more about them later on.
So I'm excited to listen to your interview/coaching session with Stephanie about goal setting. I guess this one won't be a standard format interview, but these days, I guess episodes with Stephanie often aren't.
Yeah.
And I'm especially interested because we've been doing a lot of thinking ourselves about kind of 2020 goal planning and where we're headed. I'm confident listeners have heard a number of these things as we've been announcing new projects and things. But I think one of the frameworks we've been using probably for the last quarter or so that I think is going to lead a lot into Lawyerist's 2020 strategy is figuring out ways that we can kind of step back and simplify the things that matter the most, where we can have the most impact, and kind of clean out a bunch of the noisy stuff that we've been doing just because we've been doing it, so that we can be really focused on doing the clearest and most important work we can.
I mean, what feels like a really big piece of that is the amount of cleaning up of content on the site we've been doing. I think as of today, there are thousands of fewer pages on the site than there were 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's possible that people will be frustrated with some of the pruning we've done, but we realized probably a year ago that after over 10 years of a variety of strategies of blog posting and article writing on Lawyerist over a decade, that we had built up thousands of posts and pages on the site that people weren't giving attention to, that had potentially conflicting messages with other posts or pages on the site, that people weren't visiting or no longer relevant or out of date. And so we spent this year kind of reflecting on which parts of our website were most important, which posts and pages had the most impact for our readers, and we've deleted the vast majority of the old stuff from the site in order to clarify the experience and the message and to focus on us managing a site that provides the most value it can.
I mean, there's for a dozen or so weeks, we would post this week in podcasts or this week in other blogs or something like that. And so there were all of these posts that were completely irrelevant to anything after the week in which they were posted. There were all kinds of blog posts that had broken links in them to companies that no longer existed. So we've cleaned out a lot of that and a lot of the other stuff Aaron mentioned. So I think you'll find Lawyerist an easier to navigate, cleaner place in 2020, if not this month. So
yeah, and it's all around us, not because cleanup for cleanup's sake,
right,
but for us being really focused on making sure that the work we're doing is deliberately for the most value we can have with the small firm lawyers in our community. And so we want both the content on the site and the episodes of the podcast and the work we're doing in Lab and our 2 LabCon events in 2020 to all be as focused
message
as they can be. Yep.
Yeah. Now that we have the book, which says all of the things we wanted to say in one place, we want everything else to line up with that perspective. So cool. Yeah. So check that out and let us know if you're outraged or if you love it. If you find it easier to get around, we'd love to hear back from you in Facebook or shoot us an email, whatever you prefer. Now we've got a brief sponsored conversation with Maddie Martin from Smith AI, and then my conversation with Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Maddie Martin. I am the head of growth and education for Smith AI. We are a virtual receptionist and web chat service for small businesses focused on law firms.
Welcome back, Maddie. Virtual receptionist kind of seems like almost a misnomer for Smith AI because you're more working on managing intake, right? You're doing AI-based chat now. You're doing phone answering. You're trying to get any of the communications that are coming into the firm, it seems like.
We are, and actually receptionist is really a misnomer because we actually make outbound calls in addition to just receiving, right, as receptionists, the phone calls.
So didn't even tee that up beforehand. I just wanted to clarify that because it seemed worth talking about. Today, we wanted to talk about lots of lawyers are overworked who are not business experts and are kind of overwhelmed by all of the things people, including us on this podcast, are saying they need to be working on in order to grow over the next few years. For lawyers who feel just dizzied by that whole thing, what's the low-hanging fruit? What are the effective ways that they can grow without feeling like they're drowning?
Yeah, and I think that they do feel like they're drowning, not just because 76%, according to the Clio Legal Trends report from this past year, say that they're overworked, but because of the goals that they're setting for themselves. So that same group said that 87% of them said that they want to grow in the next 3 years. But also the majority said they're not confident in their business skills. So they don't have the training, the acumen, the wherewithal, or even frankly, the interest necessarily in the business side of the law firm. So the low-hanging fruit really comes down to the basics. And honestly, not to be difficult, but it's really like, yeah, I mean, we're going to make recommendations, but also sort of the government tells you what to do in certain respects, and your CLE and legal license administrator sort of tells you what to do, right? So I don't know what the right terminology is there, but you know what I mean. How do you practice ethically and how do you run a legitimate business is really what I'm getting into. Frankly, accounting, calendaring, billing, answering the phone, being responsive on your website chat, like these are all the things that are really critical.
So when it comes to delegating and automating some of those basic things, what are some examples of things that you think are relatively easy to delegate or automate?
I think a no-brainer for automating is billing and invoicing. If you're not taking credit card and e-check payments and having those invoices be automatically sent out and then reminded to your clients, people who maybe even just had paid consults with you, that is something to immediately implement. I mean, we're seeing that attorneys are like 81% billing for the actual work that they're completing and 85% actually taking in the revenue from the invoiced work. So there's a massive loss. It's like, you're only getting like 70% of the work that you've done and deserve earnings from. So what I really think is just hand that off. It's worth spending 2%, whatever, maybe 3% on credit card fees to realize so much more of your revenue.
You mentioned calendaring as well is an easy thing to offload.
It's super easy to offload. It's something that you can also have a gatekeeper for. So online calendaring doesn't mean like plaster your calendar with no barriers all over the internet, the first thing on your Facebook page and automatically tweeting that out. Don't automate that, right? But the thing that you can do is you can have a gatekeeper like a receptionist, pre-screen, qualify those potential clients, make sure that they're a good fit. You can even have them take that credit card payment and secure the payment online when you book the appointment, when they book that for you. And then you know that the people who are scheduling those consults are really serious in doing sort of a gut check, a self-qualification themselves before they take your time up in your day, and that you're getting compensated for that work because that is expert work you're doing on a consult. And if you want to not penalize the people who are spending that money, you can credit it to their first bill. So it's not any extra cost to the people who are most serious about hiring you.
Sure.
You can also set barriers in your email signature with having your online calendar there, but clearly stating that it is for maybe existing clients only to book time with you. And people respond really well to those boundaries being set for them.
And obviously, hiring a virtual receptionist. We talked about this last time, and hiring a virtual receptionist or someone to handle your incoming communications is, I feel like, almost a no-brainer at this point. So that's another one to check out.
It really is. What's nice is that it's the opportunity to automate and delegate at the same time. So if you have a chatbot on your website, you can automatically pre-program in accurate answers to common questions that you get. And then you can also automate workflows. So if someone indicates they're a good potential client, you can screen them and send them your calendaring link. And that's all in one fell swoop.
Listeners, you can visit smith.ai for more information about how Smith AI can help you. The first 30 people who sign up for the new AI chat tool and mention the Lawyerist podcast will get free white glove setup, a $150 value. Maddie, thanks so much.
Thanks, Sam.
everyone, it's Stephanie Everett from the Lawyerist team.
Hey, Stephanie, welcome back. So we're going to do something just a little bit different today, kind of in view of the fact that we're winding down the year and we don't want to talk about New Year's resolutions, but we do want to talk about kind of goals, and we want to tie it into the work we're doing for Lab. So why don't you introduce us to how we're going to walk through this podcast today?
Yeah, so today what we thought we'd do is take you through some of the questions that I ask lawyers when I'm working with them and doing our coaching sessions, some of the questions that we would look at this time of year and think about setting some goals and doing some strategic planning for 2020. So that if you're listening along, you could listen to these questions and answer them for yourself, and I hope come up with a plan.
I suppose we're also demystifying coaching a little bit too here. I feel like people who sometimes have either unrealistic expectations of what coaching can do or should do or be, or they're overly suspicious of what it is. And hopefully today we'll shed a little bit of light on what a coaching session might look like, and that it's just like, it's the business version of going to see a personal trainer.
Yeah, it's really not a scary process. I'm not a scary person. It's questions and answers. And a lot of times, I'm listening, I'm asking questions. And for many people, what they find is saying things out loud suddenly sounds different to our own ears, right? And I've done this, I think I've done this myself, where we're talking through a hard decision, maybe about the business, and all of a sudden you hear yourself saying it and you're like, whoa, the answer is so obvious.
And it's one of those things where, like, I'm going to keep using the personal trainer metaphor because it's like, I walk around the world thinking, oh yeah, I know I need to get in better shape. But when you have a personal trainer standing there saying, do this right now, it will make you in better shape, you're more likely to actually do it than your sort of ambient awareness that you need to do more, or that you need to make more money in your business, or that you wish you were having more free time. Like, having somebody actually stop you and ask you the question is different than just sort of knowing it.
Yeah. And then there's also the element of asking the right questions. Mm-hmm. So part of my job is to help people sort of uncover some things and look at things in a new perspective. So I'll just give a quick example. I was working with a Labster the other day, and right now most of her marketing is networking, which is what a lot of folks do, and it's totally fine. And she was involved in 2 major networking groups, and we were calculating how much time she spends each week or each month going to these different meetings and connecting with people that way. And then we looked at how much business she's getting from those networking opportunities and how much revenue that generates for her. Mm-hmm. And then we took the amount of time that she's spending and multiplied it by her hourly rate. And
had she never realized how expensive it was?
It was shocking to say the least. And then we, just looking at that and looking at her income statement, which she had also pulled in anticipation of our meeting, it was so clearly obvious to her all of a sudden why she wasn't where she wanted to be.
Right.
And, and so then it was like, okay. And I remind everybody, I'm like, no judgment. Don't be that hard on yourself. That is not the point here.
It's information you didn't have before.
Right. So now we know this information, and now we can shift. And could we do some marketing activities that cost less and generate, the same or more money, or not quite as much money, but still a healthier ratio? And so part of the job is asking questions and listening to yourself, but also having someone who can push you a little bit in a gentle and kind and loving way to ask the right questions that you just, or to open you up to new possibilities. And so part of what I think, what I love about my job is I have this collective community knowledge going on, and I'm hearing all these things. And so I'm able to point people in new directions.
You can compare and contrast, and you have
like
examples from the community. And
exactly.
Okay, so where do we start? What are we going to tackle today?
I think we need to start with personal goals because they're so important, and we sometimes forget, and you've heard me say this before, but your business should exist to serve you. And so you have to start with yourself. And now's a great time to pull out a calendar for 2020 and start with some easy questions. How many vacations do you want to take next year?
That's a fun question, right?
Yeah, get excited about it. Where do you want to travel? How many days off do you want to take? And is there a goal maybe to take a longer vacation? Maybe you're not there yet. Well, plan in some shorter vacations throughout the year, or staycations, right? But you need some time off.
This is actually a great example of like why stopping to ask the questions is important. Like, you're never going to take a European vacation on a week's notice.
Right. No, that requires planning.
If you're going to take one next year, you need to start thinking about it now and block off the time.
Yeah. And have fun doing it. My family's doing this right now. We've decided we don't know yet where we're going for our family vacation, but it's opened up a lot of fun discussions to talk with our 8-year-old about where in the world we could go and what we would see and what we would do. And there's some that we've decided that's probably not a 8-year-old trip, but we can look forward to it maybe when you're a little older.
What did you rule out?
Well, my husband really wants to do this brewery tour of Belgium and Germany.
She'll need a decade to really fully enjoy that one. Fair enough.
Right. Yeah. I was like, let's not, make our 8-year-old go to a bunch of breweries. I'm sure we could find other fun things to do in between. But, that's just not what she's into right now. But anyway, but plan your time off. And, we were doing this exercise and Aaron noticed, so we've been doing this ourselves internally at Lawyerist. Yeah. And one of the things he noticed that this past year, he had a couple of work trips get stacked right on top of one another with a vacation in there. And he was like, wow, that made it really hard. And so maybe now he's approaching 2020 and we're also, we know when ABA Tech Show is going to be, we know when Clio conference is, so there's some work travel that we know we're going to take. So put those on the calendar and you can think about that as you're being really intentional and thinking about other trips you want to take too.
I think it's probably like with all goals, it's important to be realistic as well, right? Like I'd like to take a vacation every week, but that's just not realistic. I'd like to take 10 vacations next year, but probably not going to happen. But one of my goals is I want to take one vacation abroad. So I want to take a full 10-day, stringing 2 weekends in a week together and get out of the country next year.
Yeah.
That feels ambitious, but realistic.
And so then a kind of a related question is, what can you build into your schedule for your own health and wellness? So maybe you can't take a vacation every week, but maybe you could carve out some long weekends for just some wellness time or exercise or meditations in the morning or whatever it is you want to do. But again, take this opportunity now to kind of set a schedule and some expectations around when you're going to work and how you're going to work.
It's probably a good time to go back and listen to the One Thing podcast that we did where we talked about kind of motivation and what it takes to start a new habit like that.
Yeah.
It's great and all, but saying, this is the year I get in shape smacks of New Year's resolution that is going to get dropped, by the third week in January. Whereas I'm going to get up at 5:30 every day and do something is, maybe a little bit more realistic, or I'm going to go to bed by 10 o'clock so I can get up at 5:30 every day. So it's probably a good time to put some plan into action that is actually achievable.
Yeah. And so then a couple of other personal things we want to just think about. I want you to ask yourself, what do you want to learn or accomplish next year? So these could be career skills that you want to learn. Maybe you need to figure out how to be a better manager to your team, or you need to understand your finances and you're finally going to figure out what's on the balance sheet and what's on the profit and loss statement. Or maybe you want to pick up a musical instrument. I'm really excited. We just got a piano delivered to our house yesterday as an early Christmas gift.
Oh, fun.
I am 44 years old and I've always wanted to learn how to play. I am going to take piano lessons at 45 years.
That's super cool. I just picked up my guitar again recently too, and it's been really rewarding. So.
And by the way, business owners, there is benefit to playing music. I'm not going to be able to cite you the studies, but there are studies that, what's the word? Triggering that part of your brain
it's super
will help
good
you.
For your brain, yeah.
Yeah, will help you as a business owner. Maybe you want to pick up a new skill, a new language before one of those trips you're going to take, and you want to be able to say some phrases when you go travel abroad. So have some fun with this and think about what you might want to learn or how you can invest in yourself next year.
This is one reason that we kind of make everyone at Lawyerist, we make available if you want to subscribe to Masterclass or Coursera or, Audible, because just learning is important and it doesn't really matter what you're learning. I think you and Aaron were taking chef courses or something from Masterclass just to learn. Yeah. And
by the way, I took a cool poker class too.
Oh, that's right.
Right. So just learn something and practice something or pick up a new skill or a hobby or, do something that you love to do or try something new and have some fun with it. One of my Labsters just told me he's in a cookbook club. And so they pick a cookbook each month and everybody makes a recipe and they coordinate who's making what. And then they make the meal to get, and then they talk about the recipe and what worked and what could they have changed. And I was like, that's fun. So whatever it is.
It's neat to think about what you could accomplish over a year. Like a year ago, I think most people know, like I do a lot of the back end coding for our site. And like a year ago, I could barely understand anything in JavaScript. And over the last year, I picked up a book. I've done a lot of self-teaching, and now I can write code in JavaScript. And it's less than a year to learn that. Like you can learn some amazing things in the course of a year. You could absolutely become conversant in Spanish, or over the course of a year, you could absolutely learn how to cook souffles or play some songs on guitar or piano or saxophone or whatever. I mean, like a year is enough time to like pick up a real new skill.
Yeah. And hold us accountable. Next year, reach out to us and see how we're doing with our guitar.
Yeah. You and I can, maybe we can jam at our next company retreat.
Yeah. We'll see about that. We actually have a lot of talent on the team.
We can get Jennifer to bring her drum set and we'll be good to go.
And so then finally, I want you to think about how much money you want to make next year. Yeah. And, my caveat to all of these things, and we're going to then move into business goals, is to make sure that all your goals are aligning with your values. Because if you tell me that you want to make $1 million next year and you have the capacity to do it, we'll talk about that in a second. But doing so would mean that you can't exercise and you don't take any vacations and you never see your family, and those things are important to you, then, let's think about that. So let's make sure that all your goals are aligned ultimately with your values. Ultimately, I think that's what's going to make you feel more fulfilled in life.
I think sometimes when people are talking to you about Lab or Jennifer or comparing it to other coaching programs, we start talking about goals in the way that we have been so far. And people are like, what about money? And a lot of other business coaches are all about money. They just talk about make six figures or make, millions of dollars or whatever. And our approach is to try to be more holistic and make sure that your money goals are aligned with your personal goals for things like, learning and personal development and vacations and family and all of those things. Because you can't, as you just said, if your goal for next year is to make $1 million, but it means that you have to work 80 hours a week and take no vacations, and you are married and you have children, you have to balance those things, right? And you have to be realistic about that. And it may work. You may take a look at your numbers and see, I think I see where I can make this thing work for 30 hours a week. Or you may be in a position where there's just no way, and you have to something's got to give. So.
Yeah. So then let's shift into the business goals. So now we're kind of feeling good about where we want our personal life to go. We can shift to the business.
And before we do that,
yes,
we need to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. So we'll be right back to talk about business goals. A legal-only call center, Alert Communications has been helping law firms and legal marketing agencies with new client intake for over 50 years. Alert responds to and captures all leads for your law firm efficiently using their highly trained intake specialists and software solutions. They work 24/7, 365 as an extension of your law firm in both English and Spanish. Alert strives to set best practice standards within the mass tort legal community by using ethical ideals, in turn elevating the quality of client services and earning the trust of attorneys. To find out how Alert can increase your mass tort or class action lead conversion rates, call 844-MY-INTAKE or find them at alertcommunications.com. With Ross Intelligence, lawyers conducting legal research leverage AI to get to the heart of legal issues fast. Ask a query in natural language on the Ross Legal Research platform, and Ross will return on-point case law. Attorney Jonathan Udoka says he's able to use Ross as though it were a first-year associate doing top-flight legal research. At $89 a month, Ross is not only fast and intuitive, it's also affordable. See what Ross can do. Go to rossintelligence.com/lawyerist today and get a 14-day free trial. Use the promo code lawyerist for 10% off your first-year subscription.
Longtime podcast listeners and Lawyerist readers know that Sam and I get pretty excited about email productivity tips, but we know that most people don't have the time or energy to be email productivity nerds like us. So it's great that SameBox will take care of fixing your inbox for you. I've used SameBox for a while now, and it automatically organizes your incoming email into smart folders so you don't have to be overwhelmed by a busy inbox and don't have to see important client emails next to junky coupon offers, distracting you from the work you need to do. Best yet, SameBox learns with you, so if you find it puts something in the wrong folder, just move it, and SameBox will automatically learn your preference. It also has nifty features like Sane Black Hole, where you can drag messages from annoying senders you never want to hear from again. It's so simple, you won't need to learn anything to use it. It just takes care of everything itself. SaneBox works directly with every single email server or service that has ever been created, so it will definitely work for you. Get a free 2-week trial and a $25 credit by visiting samebox.com/lawyerist today. That's SANEBOX.com/lawyerist.
Okay, we're back. So Stephanie, I cut right in front of you, but let's talk about business goals.
Yeah. So just like we did with personal life, I want you, before you think about money, and we are going to get there, I promise, I want you to also ask yourself some other business goals that you might have for 2020. And maybe you think of it in terms of, how many people do you want to help and how do you want to help them? Or how many jobs do you want to create in 2020? I think it's awesome when we get to employ other people and give someone a living wage, right? That's amazing. Or how do you want your team to feel working at your firm? And how are other ways that maybe your firm can enrich your life? So make sure you include that as part of your goal setting process.
When people see that question on the scorecard, how do you want, what is the impact you want your work to have in the world? I think sometimes it feels like, we're asking what kind of a philanthropist do you want to be or something. But the reality is we're just asking, like, beyond just sitting down and punching a time card and then collecting a paycheck, what is the purpose of your business? Why are you doing this? And if the answer is just, I just want to collect a paycheck, that's okay too, I guess. But, I'm going to be talking to Dan Pink for an upcoming podcast about motivation. And it turns out that money is not the reward that motivates most people. And so there's probably something else. And maybe it's just creating jobs. Maybe it's funding a scholarship program. Maybe it's spending less time at work. Whatever it is, what is the impact you want your work to have in the world? Why are you doing that and punching that card every day?
Yeah. And I know so many lawyers I talk to me about, they want to leave a legacy. Mm-hmm. They want to teach other people. They want to teach the people who are coming up, behind them. And I think that's amazing. And so that can be a piece of this.
The impact on your clients obviously probably goes without saying as well, but unless you're just jaded and don't care. But.
Yeah. No, I think most people do care, but maybe there's a way you can think about making the process even easier for your clients. Mm-hmm. And there's some goal there that you can relieve some friction point in the process so that your clients have an amazing experience. I think that would be a great piece of the goal. And that's what we kind of talk about too in lab, because we're about to get to the money. All the back end stuff has to work too in order for the whole process to happen.
I mean, that's a really good point, because one of the ways we talk about what you're trying to do as a law firm is, are you just trying to solve legal problems, or are you trying to help people get back on their feet after a tragic accident? And so just getting people a lot of money might dictate how you construct your attorney-client relationships and your processes and your practice in one direction, or are you trying to help people get back on their feet? And how are you trying to do that? And what can you do beyond just winning the case for them in order to help people get back on their feet? So I think it's a mind shift that really helps when you actually sit down and say, here's the impact I want my firm to have for clients.
Yeah. All right. So let's do it. It's money time.
Money.
So most people have some type of goal around finances. And most people that when I first talk to them, they think of it in terms of top line revenue. I want to generate X number of dollars next year. Mm-hmm. The first thing that you need to do is, one, I think it's great to come up with that number, but then you need to evaluate it. So is it simply pie in the sky and it sounds good, or is this like a number that's achievable? So I was on the phone with someone recently and they told me next year is the year I want to get to $1 million. Well, they were pretty far away from it this year. I mean, not completely, but I think are in the 700 range. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, okay, that's still a pretty big percentage growth jump for your company to make. What would have to happen for you to hit that goal?
Yeah, 30% growth is a big deal.
Yeah. And so that's not something that's just going to come naturally or with a few tweaks. That would probably require a big shift. And so as we talked through it, she was like, you know what, maybe I just like the number $1 million and maybe next year that isn't going to be the number. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. I'm all for setting our heights high, but there's also something psychologically that happens to our team when we don't hit things. Mm-hmm. And so, let's set an aggressive goal, but let's also have a plan to get there, which was the other piece that we really focused on that she was missing before. She's new to working with me and she had this goal this year and didn't hit it. And when I asked her, well, what was your plan to actually hit that goal? It was obvious that was maybe the piece that was lacking. And so what I want you to do is once you create that money goal and evaluate it, then what is it going to take to hit it? So if it's an additional, let's just use round numbers here, you want to generate an additional $50,000 or $100,000 for your firm. Well, what does that mean in terms of caseloads? How many additional cases or clients would you have to have serviced this year? And do you currently have the capacity in your firm to do that?
Right. And would it mean taking on a new employee that would eat up all the profits?
Exactly. Would it require some additional resources, whether that be staff resources? Maybe the answer is there's some technology or there's some automation you could put in place that if you could just free up these things, or some virtual help you could put in place that then would allow you to increase your capacity. Maybe you find that you have the capacity now. You have team members who don't have full plates. But these are questions you have to ask yourself. It can't be in a vacuum. You can't just say, I want to generate more money without really understanding all the other impacts that could have on the firm.
I think it's okay to have big, audacious goals here too. Like one of the goals that I had when I was practicing was I want to make I don't remember what I considered it at the time, but I want to get paid full time for working 10 hours a week. That sounds silly, but I had in mind, the kinds of leverage like outsourcing and contracting and stuff where I could potentially leverage my 10 hours a week into a full-time paycheck. And I never quite got there, but I feel like over the years, I've actually, by aiming at that, I've accomplished a heck of a lot of it and moved myself towards it to the point where I probably could do that if I really wanted to, but it turns out I actually really enjoy what I do. But so I think setting some crazy goals like that can work as long as you understand what it would take. I mean, on the evaluation thing, right? Like if the person you were talking with was like, I want to make $1 million next year, and I understand I can't do it working the way I am now, but I'm ready to overhaul this thing and I'm prepared to fail next year, but I want to be on the path towards this. And so we're going to completely revamp the way we do marketing and intake, and we're going to adopt a new document automation platform, and we're going to build intelligence into it so that it doesn't take us much time to provide, whatever it is, you can do that. And I think that's where goals get fun is, you can, in thinking about it and evaluating it, maybe you just decide to completely change direction because in order for your business to serve your life in the way you want it to, or in order to accomplish the goals that you've set for the impact you want your firm to have, you just got to change directions and make awesome things happen.
And don't be afraid, because I think what you're describing is more of a long-term goal. Mm-hmm. And so don't be afraid to say the long-term goal is $1 million, but it's going to take us 3 years to get there. So the goal for 2020 is not $1 million, it's 825 or whatever the number ends up being, right? So I still want you to set those big goals. I just want us to then understand what it's going to take to get there. And now here comes the most important part. What is our plan to make it happen? Because I don't think it's like Field of Dreams, if you say it, they will come. I know that's not the phrase, but that's, like the reality was if you build it, they will come, right? Like he had to go out and actually cut down all his corn in order for these mystical baseball players to appear. I don't know why I'm thinking about that today.
It works.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So we got to actually now do the hard work of, okay, we want to generate $100,000 more next year, that because of the average value of our cases. And yes, you need to know that and do that work. That means we need to generate an additional, I'm just making up numbers here. I don't know if they work, an additional X number of clients, which results into, 10 more clients a month. Okay, well, now we have something to work with. All right, now what are we going to do? What is our path to getting an additional 10 clients more each month? Do we have a consistent way to attract new clients and then convert them? Or are we just kind of waiting on the phone to ring, or do we know what levers we could pull if we wanted to bring in more clients? And if not, that's okay. But that's where I think you need to do the hard work and get some help and get educated and figure out that plan, because there's lots of things you can do to market your law firm. Mm-hmm. There's just lots of opportunities there. So
are we done with goals? Have we set all the goals we need to set?
Oh, I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
And that is, or maybe this is a piece of it. So we set the goal, we want to measure it. And so there, when we're breaking down the plan, this is where I think you can set some things that you can control. So if the goal is we want to generate 10 additional clients per month, that's an outcome that you want to measure. But then you might decide for yourself, I'm going to do that by making this many calls each week to current and past clients, or I'm going to write this many posts, or I'm going to spend this many hours of marketing each week. Whatever those numbers are, then set those benchmarks for yourself in a way that they're measurable and that you can control. So then you can see, and then obviously we're constantly measuring return on investment, so you can see where you're putting your resources and which ones are getting you the outcomes you want, so that going forward, if you need to make adjustments, where to make those adjustments and where to reallocate resources so they go to the right places.
That's one that I've always said is really important for me, is really setting, how do I know if I've accomplished this goal or not? And setting those benchmarks, because by the time I've accomplished the goals, I often feel like, oh, well, I did it, so it wasn't that hard. And it's really important for me, I think, to actually say I accomplished it or I didn't, and pat myself on the back, because otherwise I often get to the end of the quarter or the year and it doesn't feel like I accomplished anything. And so it's helpful there too, not just in reprioritizing along the way or making sure you're on track, but also just in giving yourself a chance to recognize yourself for doing it.
Yeah, I love that. We always start with wins on all my calls because I love people to acknowledge their wins and I love hearing them, and it's fun.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Where should people go next? Like if they've written down their goals and they're like, okay, great, what do they do after that? They've set goals, they've set targets.
Well, then create that plan let me back up. If some of this is you're still struggling with, then I would remind you that our scorecard, which is available on the website, is a great assessment tool that you could use. And if you've taken it before, go take it again, because there could be some questions on there that will help you, that will open up your eyes to some blind spots. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I think people take it and there's a question, like you said, that throws them. And they're like, whoa, I never even thought of that before. Well, explore that a little bit. Why? And maybe you decide it's just not relevant to your practice, but maybe it's uncovering something that could be really impactful to your practice. So that's a great assessment tool to just figure out where some opportunities for some goal setting are in the new year. Obviously, then if you've got your plan in place, or maybe you're struggling with creating your plan, you know what the goal is, but you're like, wow, I have no idea how to get some more clients. Obviously, that's what we love doing. And we have a lot of resources to help people that might be feeling a little stuck. Mm-hmm. So our website has a ton of resource pages and articles and things to help you. The book is I
was going to say, just read the book. Like, yeah, if you don't know where else to start, read the book.
And the great thing about the book is you'll see in the second part of the book is divided up into specific areas of your business. So if you're really stuck on finances, you could just go and pick it up and read that finance section, and it's going to give you a place to start, and you could start working on that. And then maybe next quarter, you're like, great, I've got control of my finances now. Now I need to work on my team. Well, then you could look at I think it's great to read the whole book, but know that it's designed in a way to be really accessible so that you can get right to the piece or the information that you need when you need it.
And so that you can come back to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely read the book. And if this resonates with people and they're like, I actually do want Stephanie's help, what do they do then?
Yeah, I would love to connect with you. There's lots of ways to get a hold of me, obviously on the website, but you can also just email me, Stephanie@lawyerist.com, and we could set up a quick chat. And what I would love to do is just find out, what kind of help do you need? Because we have a couple of programs now. You've probably heard us talk about Lab, which is our more extensive coaching program that really covers all aspects of your business. But we've also are launching a new program in January called Accelerator that's going to be a 10-week sprint, and it's going to really focus on that strategic marketing plan. So if you need help creating that path and that plan for how you're going to generate more consistent new clients and convert those clients into paying clients, or convert ideal clients into paying clients, then I'm really, really excited about this new program. I think you'll see if you connect with me, and maybe you can just even hear it. I get really excited about this.
You do.
I know I just love what I do. And as I'm building out this new course, and I've been doing all the research and the work that I do, because if you don't know this about me, I'm a lawyer first. And so I research the heck out of things before. And I feel like my job is just distill all the information in the world down to a way that I can then teach it to you, because I've been in your shoes and I know what it's like to run a small firm. So I can give you the relevant bite-sized pieces that you can then immediately implement into your practice. That's my whole goal. I tell people, you can learn, you can read, you could read the book. The stuff I'm going to tell you is out in the world. Where this is going to matter is I'm going to give it to you in bite-sized pieces, and we're going to implement it, because that's really where you see results, is putting this into practice. And that's what I love doing, because I love seeing people get results and work and have those wins and be happy and have fulfilling lives. That's the whole point, people.
It's pretty rewarding. I should say here too, like, You don't have to buy the book for what it's worth. You do if you want to read the whole thing. But if you just go to lawyerist.com/book, you can get the first chapter for free. And the reason we did that is because if it's not for you, you'll find out by the end of the first chapter.
Exactly.
So go ahead and get it and read it and see if it's for you or not.
Yeah. But no matter what, go through this, take a couple of hours between now and the end of the year and do this goal setting work. I promise you it will be worthwhile, and you'll discover some new things about yourself and how you want your business and your life to look in 2020. And I think we've talked about this before, but an overarching theme of the book is being intentional. And that's really what we're trying to impart on you today is be intentional with your life, because if you're not, you'll wake up one day and this thing will just kind of have taken hold of you and you won't be in control anymore. That's no fun.
I think that's a good place to end. Stephanie, thanks so much for talking about goal setting. Good luck ending up 2019 to all our listeners, I guess. I hope you all do set your goals and share them with us, and we'd love to hear about them in the Lawyerist Insider Facebook group.
Are you interested in implementing the ideas you've heard on today's podcast into your law firm? Could you use a little help? Hey guys, it's Stephanie, the VP of Community Success here at Lawyerist, and I'd love to help you tackle your business or take it to the next level. Head over to go.lawyerist.com/start to sign up for a quick call with me, and let's talk about how Lawyerist can help you create your best law firm.
Make sure to catch next week's episode of the Lawyerist podcast by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast app. And please leave a rating to help other people find our show. You can find the notes for today's episode on lawyerist.com/podcast.
The Lawyerist podcast is edited by Paul Fisher. The views expressed by the participants are their own and are not endorsed by Legal Talk Network. Nothing said in this podcast is legal advice for you.